All right, welcome back. Basketball fever in full force. We're debating the difference between 29 and 30. Nothing better when these two programs are both barreling toward the NCAA tournament. Sam McKewon joins us now on the 42 Degrees The Source Hotline. Sam, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, I'm pretty good. How are you?
Good. How did you enjoy the basketball over the weekend?
It was good. Yeah, I mean, it was fun to watch Nebraska finish off its home season and do things the way they wanted to. And of course, if there's a more enjoyable team to watch than Creighton, I don't know what team that is. I really don't. Maybe Arizona. I don't know. Creighton's the most fun team to watch in college basketball. So every time they take the court, it's kind of an adventure. And they usually end up on the right side of the ledger. So they're a joy to watch. And Nebraska's going to get there. They're going to make the NCAA tournament, which is very cool for them.
I saw a lot of conversation last night about. I mean, obviously, with Keisei and the way the crowd reacts to him, and there was people talking about how he was, is he the favorite player in this period of time? Where do you think he goes in the mix of maybe not necessarily best Nebraska basketball players of all time? I don't think he probably belongs in that conversation. But Fred Hoiberg was talking about this too, just in the sense that, how the fan base feels about him and how he kind of ignited the program a little bit with his energy. Where do you think he falls in that conversation?
Among favorites, very, very high, probably in the top 5 ever. He just, he has a great personality for the sport. And there's not, and it's guileless, right? Like he's just having fun. This isn't trying to make any sort of statement against any players or anything like that. And so, he made the and one, and he kind of goes into the crowd. That doesn't happen very much in college basketball. It really doesn't. It just doesn't happen. That's more of an NBA thing. And, so he's a showman. And I think people deeply appreciate the way that he is, and so he invites people into what's going on the court. He's not a miser, and you gotta like that. You got that's kind of the stuff of life, and I appreciate that he's able to bring people a little bit of joy. So he's very high on the list. I mean, as I follow Nebraska basketball since the early 90s, right, when they were really, really good. I'd say Tyronn Lue is probably the other player that I guess I thought of, whereas like that's probably the other guy that you feel that way about. And Lue wasn't quite like that on the court, but you felt that way when you watched his game. Maybe Piakowski, but yeah, Keisei's way up there in terms of that. And he plays on our Tom Chattel, our columnist, is going to kind of talk this week because he knows he has the institutional knowledge to go all the way back, and he's going to talk to some folks who also know where this Nebraska team ranks. It ranks very high. Obviously, that's a commentary on the lack of success within Nebraska basketball, but it ranks very high in the school's history, and of course, it would probably become number 1 or number 2 if they won an NCAA tournament game.
Yep. And we're just a couple weeks away from finding out if that'll be the case or not. You wrote, it was a big conversation yesterday. I saw you tweet about this, and I felt like it was coming up in the rewind. And sure enough, there's a blurb about Caitlin Clark and how bad TV networks might feel about themselves if they let Big Ten rights go away. Some specific TV networks, when they couldn't have access to all of this, the Caitlin Clark shooting star of the last, I don't know. It's been building for a couple of years now, but specifically the last month or two here, where it's been shattering numbers across television networks.
Yeah, for sure. And ESPN, ABC bowed out of that conversation in the summer of, it's been a while now. The summer of 22 is really when the deal got done. Right. So it started in summer of 23, but it was kind of finished in the summer of 22. And at that time, I don't think anybody really knew what Caitlin Clark was going to become. She was coming off a second-round tournament exit against Creighton. She was certainly a great player, but I don't know that anybody was thinking about her that way. Everybody, I think, was talking about Paige Beckers at the time. Well, she's the real one. And, of course, she's gotten hurt a couple of different times, and is just a different player than Clark. And then Clark's, sort of star just took off in the NCAA tournament last year. And then coming into this year, just something changed. It was a completely different phenomenon, and everybody kind of knew it. And I think she just has an unusual number of fans. And ESPN ABC has not been able to show any of it. And they backed out of Michigan, Ohio State football and all those things. Like, that's a decision they made because they didn't have much of a choice. I think they decided to own the SEC and the ACC networks and own the entire inventory for those leagues. And they couldn't have known at the time that the ACC, is probably going, if it isn't going to fall apart, that it becomes sort of a secondary league. And so, I'm sure ESPN ABC will be back at the front counter when this deal comes up in 6 years. I mean, the Big Ten will be back on that network, and I don't know what network will lose the Big Ten. Probably NBC, but you never know. NBC probably has the best production value of the college football games that I've seen. To be honest with you, they've done a good job, and they're staying ahead of the subpar announcing. I mean, they moved Collinsworth's kid off the game, and now Collinsworth's kid's just not going to do anything collegiately. He's going to go do the XFL or whatever. And NBC was wise to make that decision, and so they're trying to beef things up. But Caitlin Clark, and guess what? There's a player at USC who is just as good as Caitlin Clark. They're very, very close to it. Her name's Juju Watkins, and most people haven't seen her because Pac-12 plays on Fridays and Sundays. That's when they play their games generally, and they have like a travel thing. And so most people have no idea who she is. She's going to be a first-team All-American, and to watch her play is something special. She's a little different from Clark, but she's got very similar range, and she has the potential to break all of Clark's records, and I'm not kidding. And she comes to the Big Ten next year, and it's the same deal. She's going to be on in the Midwest constantly, and on CBS and NBC and all these other networks, and ABC, ESPN is going to be frozen out of the next great player in Juju Watkins. It's kind of fascinating, to be honest with you.
Well, and it's also happening at the same time. Now, I don't know if Britt Prince is going to be that to Nebraska, but
I don't think she's going to be Juju Watkins.
But she, it comes in with a significant amount of fanfare, home state, and four titles, 5-star, type of recruit. I agree with you, Sam, but maybe in a small sense that she kind of whatever it takes to get people to the games.
Right.
That's kind of what it is for Nebraska.
Yeah. So Minnesota, she got hurt this year, but Minnesota's got a player named Mara Braun, and she's really, really good, to be clear. And I think Britt Prince is, probably got that capability. I wish I knew how to pronounce her first name. Mara. She, she was like a 5-star as well. And so, like, I would say that's kind of where, Britt's game is, and it's really, really good. Like, it's, 15 points a game, 6 rebounds, 5 assists kind of thing, I think. And so, one of the best players in Nebraska history if she's able to come out of the gate like that. And that's what I would anticipate. I think Nebraska's got a great player there. And if Widener is healthy, and certainly the hope is that she is, then it's a completely different backcourt, completely different team. And they're certainly probably going to make the NCAA tournament. I think they will, with Jazz Shelley and Darian White and Callan Hake and Logan Nisley as their primary guards. Maybe I'm missing somebody. Kendall Moriarty. These are all great players. And Jazz obviously is probably going to be second team, but if Widener's healthy and then Prince comes in, you have 2 players who can get to the rim, and that's what really separates you as a college basketball team is when you're able to start. You don't have to rely on the 3-point shot.
Yeah, you're not going to lose to teams you shouldn't lose to.
Right. It's ironic, but actually, Caitlin Clark does not need to rely on her 3-point shot. She does, and you could argue that she makes them from so far away that it actually changes the calculus of,
Yep.
of the defense. I think it really does. It changes the gravity of the defense because she can make them from 40 feet. But what's special about her is if you went out and guarded out there, she'd just blow by you.
Absolutely. She's faster than basically anybody else with the ball in her hands too.
She is. And so that's one of the challenges, like when she'll go to the WNBA, that I don't know if she's going to get 42-foot shots, but she'll get a lot at the rim. And that's what you need. It's what Ohio State has, certainly what South Carolina has. South Carolina's not a great three-point shooting team. South Carolina's a little different from most teams in college basketball, but it's certainly what a lot of the very best teams have that. USC is one of the best teams, and they have Juju Watkins, and she's able to get to the rim, 12 times a game, and maybe make 5 or 6 of them, and draw some fouls. I mean, it's just very hard to stop. And so Nebraska needs that. You'd love it if the player was 6'2", or it's 5'11", Widener's 5'9", thereabouts. But they're going to be good additions when they come back. And Britt's certainly a winner. I mean, she's never really lost a big game in her life. But that will help this program. And so they'll have to hit the reset button a little when Jazz is gone. I mean, she's a great player, but I think they can kind of keep what they've got right now going and maybe even win a game or 2 more. You just never know.
Me too. And the ceiling gets a little bit bigger. Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald is with us. Sam, what do you think about a couple things on football here? What do you think about the slogan and the sloganeering, the 3 more, chasing 3 for Nebraska football this year?
I think it's good. I think certainly they're going to talk a lot about those games that they lost last season and why they lost them and how they lost them. And of course, that needs to be ingrained in the culture. There were some things, especially as it related to, carelessness with the football in the fourth quarters of games. 2 games that they won against Illinois and Purdue was some of the most careless ball handling you'll ever see.
Yeah.
And Nebraska won the game. And they turned the ball over, I think, against Illinois 3 times and Purdue twice. And, things just didn't go very well at the quarterback position for Nebraska in the fourth quarters of games. And it's interesting. Like, we could sit there and talk to Matt Rule, and we will. We'll talk to him 27 times or whatever before the beginning of the season. But the essential question that really, really has to be answered is just not something that can be answered until the games are played.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you that the culture was going to be better last year before they played a game. And then, you watch it in the first half in that Minnesota game, and you're like, Minnesota has kicked Nebraska's butt for like 6 straight years. And here's Nebraska flying around like a bunch of madmen. And we hadn't seen that for years against Minnesota. Minnesota had just sort of moved like a slow boat, through the water against Nebraska for many years. And then last year it was different. You could tell that right away. But the thing that Nebraska has to get better at and change, you just won't know it until you see it in the fourth quarters of games, because the quarterback play held them back. And it's a lot of pressure on Harburg and Rayola and Kalen, it's a lot. They're going to have to shoulder a lot of it. And, we'll just see how it goes. It's going to be really interesting because obviously I enjoy talking to Matt Rule. I don't have that many big overarching questions for him though. It's more about, here are the finer points. You can see the culture. Now Nebraska has to do it. It's kind of about the football. It's not about the morals.
Which is good.
It is good. Yeah, it's good. I think we would all like to see, and I'm sure they would like to see, an offense where you turn around, you hand the football off, and your running back gets 4.5 yards of carry. And you're not having, we can talk about this all day. Ideally, what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to hand the ball off to your running back. Maybe he's got a lead blocker. Maybe he's got a puller. Maybe it's his own play. And you're able to grind out a first down after 3 carries. And if I was going to say, here's one thing that Minnesota football has done really well over the last 6 or 7 years, it's that. They haven't won all the games. Obviously, they looked like jack-o'-lanterns against Michigan last year. They looked terrible. And they were embarrassed. and they were embarrassed in some other games too. But by goodness, if you look at what Minnesota's done over the last 7 years, they've been able to hand it off to Mo, Ibrahim, or whomever else they have back there, and they got a guy that can go for 200 yards because that line can block. And that's what Nebraska needs to do. And then their quarterback play needs to be better. Those are the two things that you really think about. All the other pieces seem to be in place. If somebody's going to ask me who's the guy that's going to make the biggest jump on this team, year 1 to year 2, I'll give you a tricky answer, Tristan Alvano. I think he's going to end up being, a 24 out of 28 kind of guy, and making a couple from 50 or beyond. I think that kid's going to figure it out, and they're going to have a weapon there. It's a question of, can you run the football when you want to run it without having to get cute with the quarterback or without having to hand it to a wide receiver coming around you? And can your quarterback, manage a drive?
That's right.
And manage a drive. And last year, Trevor Purdy had the one at Wisconsin, but everything else, just late in the game, Nebraska just could not manage football drives with their young quarterback.
Yeah, the idea for the quarterback in a situation you want to put him in is like, this is oversimplification for sure, but don't screw it up instead of, hey, and this is how it was with Sims last year, right? We're just going to put everything on your shoulders, go make some plays, run around, and it crumbled immediately, predictably, right? And so theoretically, when you have more talent at the position and a better apparatus around him, it works better, right?
For sure. And I'm sure that the way that they looked at, one of the things I would like to talk with Rule at length about is just like, walk me through some of the moments late in games last year, or even late in that first half against Colorado, and just kind of tell me what the feedback was and what people were thinking when they're making some of the decisions they're making, because there was so many circumstances in multiple games where you could just get sacked. You could run out of bounds, throw it away, and you don't make the mistake that Sims made over the middle against Minnesota, and the one that Chuba made against Iowa. A truly unnecessary mistake against Iowa that we never got to hear from Chuba about. And things like that. Like there's just moments of that season. I'm sure that's eaten up Rule inside, taking up time in his brain, and but at the same time, it's almost like a golf swing. Like, you think about a champion golfer that plays really, really good golf in the U.S. Open, and then they come to 17 and they make a bad swing, and it like costs them the U.S. Open. And that stuff's it can be hard to fix. Like you just have to go out and actually do it better next time. And I'm sure Nebraska will be in those moments. The challenge is, Connor, we've been watching 7 years of this where they can't close the deal late in games. At some point, I'll have a story that from, starting in 2017, really 2016, but starting in 2017 all the way through last year, just all of the final opportunities that Nebraska had on drives.
Oh, no.
And how often those drives ended up in turnovers.
Almost all of them.
Yeah, calamity. You go all the way back to 2017 Oregon, and Nebraska's got a chance to tie that football game late. Somebody doesn't get a block, and Tanner Lee fumbles. And, Tanner Lee throws an interception later in the season that cost him. He did beat Purdue, but that, cost him play. And Adrian Martinez has a snap go through his legs at Northwestern. And, just all of these unbelievable circumstances. Luke McCaffrey throws a ball and it hits someone's helmet and it goes up in the air. Like all these opportunities they had to finish out games, and they just didn't get it done. And they had turnovers. And so like all those are the things that you've got to change. And that's not going to be easy to do unless you do it.
Maybe the slogan should have been "No calamities." No more calamities in the fourth quarter. It's a little wordy at that point.
No question. There's just, I don't know. There's circumstances where, the 21 Oklahoma game, there's 55 seconds, they're 80 yards away.
Yeah, like that. You could take that one out. That's fine. Yeah.
But then you've got a situation where the tied against Iowa in 2019.
2019, yep.
And, and all of a sudden Luke McCaffrey comes in the game and like the clock's running. And then on third down, Adrian Martinez could have let the clock run out, but he
ran out of bounds.
And I mean, just all these things.
Everything in 2021, every single game.
Oh yeah, and this is just my opinion talking here. Maybe my gut feeling. I think they got the best quarterback coach they've had in there in a long, long stinking time. So I think the guy they got right now that Rule just hired probably is the best they've had. Like, if you're just talking like quarterback coaches, best they've had since Sean Watson. And I know not everybody loves Sean Watson, but then you ask Joe Gans about Sean Watson, and I'm convinced by Joe Gans' testimonial of how good of a coach Sean Watson was, because Joe Gans was a good quarterback. And so, but this is the best one they've had in a long time. Like, it's not, and maybe Mark Whipple is that guy too. I don't know. Mark Whipple didn't really fit the demeanor of the program at that moment, but it's either Whipple or it's Glenn Thomas, and Whipple was kind of surly when he was here. So I think Nebraska's quarterback play is going to get better. I think there was an issue last year with the play, and I think there was absolutely an issue during the Purdue years, Mario's years. And I love Mario, but that didn't work. So I think they're bound to get a lot better. I really do. Like, I think hiring that guy is going to help them a lot.
Sam, thanks as always, my friend. Have a good week.
Take care.
Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald.